Hey everybody, Brian Zane here with a special Friday edition of Who Wore It Better, where I review Raw and Smackdown back to back and try and figure out which show won for the week. Some quick caveats before we begin here. As you can tell, yes, I'm still out of town on the road, not in the usual set, so that's one thing. And then another big thing is I watched the Hulu versions of both shows this week because, nowhere I've been this week has had cable, so I had to watch Hulu to catch up. So obviously Raw is going to be more affected by the Hulu version, but in the interest of fairness, to keep everything level because both shows are altered because they're on Hulu, I'm not going to be awarding any official points this week. I will be naming a winner, just no points. So let's begin. Raw begins with GM Kurt Angle making his way to the ring. He's about to make an announcement as to who will be facing Brock Lesnar for the championship at Summerslam in spite of what happened after last week's main event. But before he can make his official announcement, Braun Strowman comes out and says he should be facing Lesnar. Then Samoa Joe comes out and says, no, I should be facing Brock Lesnar. Then Roman Reigns comes out to his standing boovation. They're booing as he's talking and cutting his promo, which is not something you often hear. People usually wait to hear complete sentences before they react. They're just booing nonstop here. But Roman actually makes a solid argument as to why he should be #1 contender. Because he's laying out in 5 years, I've won these championships and I've done these things. What have you guys done since you've been here? Nothing. And grand scheme of things, Strowman and Joe really haven't done much in the terms of tangible accomplishments since coming to WWE. Obviously, Joe, he was two-time NXT champion. We know that, but talking about main roster stuff. So Kurt makes his announcement for SummerSlam. It'll be a fatal four-way. It'll be Lesnar taking on Strowman, Roman, and Joe, which I pretty much figured things were going to go in that direction after what happened last week. So, prophecy fulfilled. I'm really excited about this matchup. So then you've got Joe getting pissed. It should be a singles match. And Strowman goes, no matter what happens, I just want to pile up bodies. And then Roman goes, man, shut up, and just starts fighting. And it's a big brawl. I just love Roman's just kind of nonchalant. It's just such a petty insult. Man, shut up, and starts fighting. I thought it made me laugh. So there's a big brawl happening, and then the local workers dressed as security guys come out. They get shit canned by Strowman. Then you've got the whole roster coming out to get to the ringside, trying to split everyone up. Strowman stands tall at the end of it after slamming Roman in the ring while Samoa Joe is being restrained by some roster members on the outside. Great opening segment. It puts everything in place for SummerSlam with all four of these guys. Next week, those three guys, Roman, Strowman, and Joe, are going to be in a triple threat, and I'm looking forward to seeing how that match goes. Elias Samson taking on Finn Balor in a no DQ match. What I would imagine is the blow-off to their little micro feud they've been having on Raw over the last 2 weeks. Of course, Samson singing a song, doesn't get to finish it, because Finn Balor interrupts him. In this match, a no DQ essentially just means, a few chair spots here and there. This match was an okay match. Nothing really blew me away about it, and the chair shots, they were, fine. The spots they use with the chairs, setting up the thing in the corner, Elias throws him in, but it gets backfired, so he gets in the chair. So that kind of stuff is happening. Finn Balor hits Elias with the coup de grace to win the match, supposedly, but then Bray Wyatt teleports into the ring and hits Finn with his sister Abby. Elias crawls on top of Finn and wins the match there. So it's a good, solid win. I mean, it was done with assist from Bray Wyatt, but it's fine for Elias because he's a heel. So he wins this match. He pretty much wins the feud, I guess. I can't imagine these two are going to be fighting soon, because now Finn seems to be fully entrenched in this rivalry with Bray Wyatt. I forgot what Elias music sounds like because he wins and they play the music, so it's kind of refreshing to hear that. So yeah, overall it was a fine match and nothing really blew me away about it though. Finn is now fully engulfed now in this feud with Bray Wyatt. In a rematch from Great Balls of Fire, Enzo Amore taking on Big Cass in singles action. This match was apparently sponsored by Sonic's Premium Pretzel Dog, which I thought was the perfect nickname for Enzo Amore because he looked like the living embodiment of a premium pretzel dog. It was just so tan and just loud looking. What is this I'm looking at? So much like, Great Balls of Fire, it was a pretty one-sided contest, slightly more competitive than the pay-per-view match, but not saying much because Enzo did get some licks in, but Cass ultimately beats him with a big boot to win the match, further killing Enzo Amore here. He keeps beating on Enzo some more, but Big Show comes out to make the save. He's got a nice trim goatee now. I think it's a much better look than the mountain man beard he had the last several months. And Big Cass grabs Enzo's head. I'm going to snap his neck if you get in the ring, which is just a horrifying visual just to see. He's got the head like this, he's got twisted like that. I don't want us to think about that. So Big Show's distracted by the threats, and that allows Cass to beat on Big Show for a really long time. Raw seems to have this fetish for protracted heel beatdowns that just go on way longer than they really have any right to be or really need to be. He hits Big Show with 5 or 6 Empire elbows. There's very audible spot calling by the Big Show here, telling Cass what to do next. And then the whole thing ends and Cass walks off again, having beat up both Enzo and Big Show. Good look for Cass Cass, I guess, but again, with Enzo, where do you go from here? What can you possibly do on Raw now that's gonna look good? Because you've proven, they've proven with Enzo he can't fight Big Cass, can't beat him one-on-one, can't even be competitive with him one-on-one in a straight one-on-one match. So short of demoting him to 205 Live, I don't know what the point of keeping him on Raw is at this point. Move him to SmackDown. And since, SmackDown lost Jason Jordan, put Enzo Amore on SmackDown and just give him something fresh to work with. Keep him away from Big Cass as long as possible now that you've been shown that Cass is truly dominant against you. That's my thought about it. Speaking of Jason Jordan, he was backstage being interviewed, and as I was watching this segment, I was like, ooh, I feel fatigued and depressed, like my whole life force, my mana was being like sucked from my body because, oh my God, this promo was boring. Oh, I don't know. I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt this week and just say maybe it's the material he was given, because they're still riding the high and momentum of the whole, Jason Jordan is Kurt Angle's biological son storyline. And I get that. And they're still trying to convey that stuff, but he's just like so bland here. He's just, his delivery is like, gosh, I got the butterflies. My hero's my dad. Like if you just compare that to like how he was cutting promos with American Alpha, you could see there's something there in Jason Jordan. And again, so I'm hopefully this is the delivery. Hopefully this is just some freak occurrence, because this promo was just not, I was not feeling it, and you could hear the crowd chanting boring over what was happening here. It was not a good look for Jason Jordan for his first solo promo since coming to Raw. The match he had with Kurt Hawkins later on, it was a squash. He looked competent in this. Speaking of which, one thing I marked out for in the match itself was it would cut back to Kurt Angle watching on the monitor, and it actually was like a believable, like not contrived angle of looking at the monitor. Most people are like looking at like this, like doing this, looking at the monitor, but he actually like had his body was facing the screen. Like, oh man, it's so refreshing to see something look quasi-realistic when he's looking at a monitor. So kudos to them for their blocking in that one. So yeah, Jason Jordan wins that with like a dropping down neck breaker, kind of like a solo version of the Grand Amplitude. And there you go, Jason Jordan on his way. Please have him cut more dynamic promos than what he had on Monday. Sasha Banks taking on Bayley to see who will face Alexa Bliss at SummerSlam for the women's title. Alexa was a commentary for this match, but you wouldn't really know because she didn't say much to begin with, and when she did say stuff, it wasn't anything really worth talking about. This match, the whole story was, will the friendship between Bayley and Sasha dissolve tonight over this #1 contendership? And so that's the story they told. They started wrestling very clean against each other for the first part, and then they start slapping each other in the face, and the slaps turn to forearms. It's really physical. This was one of my favorite matches of the night. It's not anywhere, of course, on the level of what they did at NXT a couple of years ago, but it's something nice, in between, in middle of the road kind of match between these two. The match ends when Sasha hits the frog splash, and then as she's pinning, Bayley kicks out and rolls up into a pinning combination of her own to end the match. That was kind of a surprising finish. I thought it was, that's kind of weird, like how that she would just kind of counter that and to get the pinfall. That took enough out of Sasha for her to be pinned. But and just in terms of the overall context of the match, I thought it was fine. Some people complained there wasn't really enough selling in the match, but that didn't take it away from me. There's like, I've seen what blatant no selling looks like, and this to me wasn't that bad in my opinion. It was a very solid match by these two. Great stuff. So Bayley goes over. She is gonna, because she's gonna be facing Alexa Bliss for the title at SummerSlam. At least she won a match on her own this time, not with Sasha Banks' help. That is a step in the right direction. So we'll see where this dynamic between her and Sasha goes leading into SummerSlam. Main event time is Seth Rollins and Dean Ambrose, is what is called the partial Shield reunion, taking on The Miz and the Miz-Taraj of Bo Dallas and Curtis Axel. Why don't they just call the collective three of them the Miz-Taraj? They keep calling it The Miz and the Miz-Taraj. Just call it the Miz-Taraj as a collective unit, and you've got all your bases covered. We know it's The Miz, and we know it's his buddies. Bingo! It just cleans everything up. Anyway, the whole story here is that Dean doesn't trust Seth. After the 3 years after, Seth backstabbed the Shield and everything, he still doesn't trust Seth Rollins here. They've been playing that up for the last several weeks. So I was surprised watching this match because, despite this like supposed tension between Seth and Dean, they're working pretty well as a unit. They were doing a lot of quick tags and stuff early in the match, and then by the end, Dean is just rooting hardcore for Seth as he's like taking all the heat and trying to get the hot tag. He's like fully on team Seth at this point, and you could argue, well, he just wants to win. He wants to win the fight. Yeah, but it's like he's still like, there's no trepidation, there's no hesitation there, still no lack of trust. It's weird how it just kind of dissolves in this match. Maybe it's just all the old memories flooding back to Dean Ambrose and the way it used to be. There's one point I was like, I just want to say, is Bo Dallas okay? Because at one point Dean like throws Bo Dallas out of the ring and he has like a baseball slide out, but he pulls an Enzo and like just totally decapitates himself on that bottom rope on his way out. I'm like, oh my God, I hope that Bo Dallas is okay there. The match ends when Seth and Dean do a little double team action. Not so much double team as like one after the other in quick succession action against The Miz, and Dean hits The Miz with the Dirty Deeds to win the match, and they're like celebrating, and Seth like puts out the fist for the Shield thing, and then Dean's like, nope, and he just walks away. They haven't gotten to that point yet. They haven't fully healed yet. It was, it was a fun main event, solid work by all 5 guys, and I'm looking forward to seeing where this thing with Seth and Dean leads. My prediction is we're going to see SummerSlam a triple threat for the Intercontinental title between Miz, Dean, and Seth, and that's where the true like relationship will be tested here. So that's my prediction. Before we move on to SmackDown, I want you guys to know this special Friday edition of Who Wore It Better is brought to you by the fine folks at SeatGeek. SeatGeek is an app you can download on your iOS or Android device with the link at the top of this description, and it collects a bunch of ticket data from all over the place for concerts, sporting events, WWE, you name it. You can find the ticket you're looking for through SeatGeek. The tickets are rated by color code. Green means good, red means bad. There's a numerical score for these tickets as well. With certain cases, you can actually see the view of the seat you're getting from SeatGeek. There are no hidden fees. There's never been a smarter or cheaper way to buy tickets than with SeatGeek. And like I mentioned, you can download this app using the link at the top of this description, and if you want to save some money, after you download the app, go to the Accounts tab in the app, put in Zane as the promo code, and get $20 back on your first order. SmackDown begins with the new U.S. champion Kevin Owens making his way to the ring. Maestro. America, 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 America. Kevin announces he's bringing back the U.S. Championship Open next week. He's not doing it this week, but then all of a sudden AJ Styles comes out and says he wants a rematch for the title against Kevin, but he says no. Then who shows up but Chris Jericho? We haven't seen him since May when he got laid out by Kevin Owens in the first SmackDown after Payback when Jericho won the U.S. Championship. So really cool to see Jericho coming back. Very exciting. I don't know what was in his hair, but still I pop for the return of Jericho. He puts AJ Styles on the list, and Kevin has enough of this. He walks away, but then Shane McMahon makes the match for later in the night. It's going to be a triple threat for the U.S. Championship because both guys have legit claims to a rematch against Kevin Owens. So you've got Kevin Owens defending against AJ Styles and Jericho later tonight. Really cool opening segment. Great to see Jericho back. In my very controversial review of the Battleground pay-per-view, it was controversial because I said I liked it. I mentioned my least favorite match of the whole show was Shinsuke versus Baron Corbin. I thought it went way too long, didn't really showcase either of these guys' strengths. Just wasn't my favorite match of these two, and I'm not really a big fan of the rivalry in general. But this match, that being said, in this rematch from Battleground, was, in my opinion, a big step up. I think it was much faster paced. I liked the offense. I liked the story they told. I actually clean, decisive finish, not like the shitty low blow finish we had at the end of the match and on Battleground. So yeah, I think this is an overall improvement from what we saw at the pay-per-view. Why this match wasn't the one we saw at Battleground, I don't know. I think that would have, just swapping those two, having that match from Tuesday on Sunday instead, I think could have helped elevate a lot of people's opinions on the show as a whole, because this was, I think, a universally sour point for a lot of people on Sunday. So yeah, Shinsuke wins clean with the Kinshasa. So technically, I would say this is 50-50 booking, but it's not, because Baron Corbin lost both matches this week, although he came out standing tall at the end of Sunday because he hit, he hit Shinsuke with the end of days afterward after the low blow. But he lost both of these. Now, and I've said before that like it's customary for the Money in the Bank winner to lose a lot before they eventually cash it in. So, you could argue, do these losses really hurt Baron Corbin? I don't know. I think the jury's still out. If he loses a lot more beyond this, I think you need to have a healthy balance of winning and losing. You can't just be losing all the time like he's been doing lately. Like, again, for reference, he lost to Sami Zayn 3 matches in a row before winning Money in the Bank, so that's not a good look. Then he loses twice in a row to Shinsuke here, which again, not a terrible thing when you consider the opponent, but this was just kind of a weird rivalry, and I think it's over now that we see what happens later in the show. But yeah, like I said, this is a much improved bit from Battleground, and yeah, I had no complaints with this match. Becky Lynch and Charlotte taking on Lana and Tamina in a short and sweet tag team match here. Pretty competent wrestling ability by Lana here, despite the fact that fans are chanting, "You can't wrestle," while she has Becky Lynch in an armbar. This is actually the most actual wrestling I've seen Lana do since she started working on SmackDown. The match ends when Lana tags herself in as she's being overzealous in the match. She eats a big boot from Charlotte and loses there via pinfall. So there goes the world's least effective partnership in Tamina and Lana between Sunday and Tuesday. Again, what's the end game with this? At one point, is Lana going to turn the corner and prove herself to be a competent competitor in the ring in kayfabe land? The champ, Jinder Mahal, makes his way to the ring sans Singh brothers, and surprisingly also without the Great Khali, which surprised me a lot, because considering, how crazy it was to see him come back on Sunday, the first time we've seen him in the company in years, to have him return here and be such a pivotal point in the match, like the whole reason that Jinder Mahal won on Sunday, to have him not show up and barely mentioned both by the announcers and not at all mentioned by Jinder Mahal was kind of surprising. So Jinder demands an opponent for SummerSlam, and out comes John Cena. Now Jinder, a very interesting exchange here is Jinder says, I know what you're going to say. I'm John Cena. I'm a 16-time champ. And then Cena goes, no, I'm not going to say that, Jinder. I'm not going to say that at all. Then he pretty much goes and exactly says those things. He pretty much does exactly what Jinder said he was going to say. So Cena answers the challenge for SummerSlam. Short and sweet promo by Cena here. Very strong though. It's not like dripping with patriotism. Like it wasn't getting too garish in that regard. Like nothing, pretty much no mention of the flag match from Sunday. So basically he's answering the challenge. He walks off. Then Daniel Bryan comes out and says, next week we're going to have a match actually between Cena and Shinsuke Nakamura. And the winner will face Jinder Mahal for the championship at SummerSlam. What a sentence. Can you just imagine that? I saw a great tweet this week. Imagine explaining this to a time traveler from 2014. Because just look at that. It's a match graphic of John Cena and Shinsuke Nakamura, and the lower third says, who will face Jinder Mahal at SummerSlam? It's just amazing times you live in 2017. That being said, I am really excited for this match next week. When they say it's a dream match, they're not kidding. I think this has the potential to be a really good match. I hope it doesn't have a bullshit finish and make it turn into a triple threat like everything else. Aiden English and Mike Kanellis taking on Ty Dillinger and Sami Zayn. I think this marks the first time since coming on the main roster that Aiden English was able to actually complete his song at the beginning of the match. So points for him there. My favorite part of this match was actually like a really good recovery on a botch. Because at one point, Sami and Aiden are in the ring, and Sami's reaching to grab Aiden's head to throw him out of the ring. But he's short, and you just see him like hold his hand out like this for what feels like an eternity as he screws up there. But Aiden recovers, and they go and they do like they improvise basically, and they complete the spot by Sami throwing Aiden out of the ring by doing a different kind of sequence. So it's like, oh my god, that's so smart. Great on the fly thinking by these two guys here. Even though Sami's doing this for like 5 minutes was very awkward to watch. The fact they recovered it was great stuff by both guys. Match ends with a haluva kick to the face of Mike Kanellis by Sami Zayn. The faces win here, and that's all I got. The new Smackdown Tag Team Champions, the New Day, are about to make their way to the ring and celebrate their win from Sunday. But as Big E is doing his off-stage intro on the PA mic, the New Day are beaten up backstage by the Usos, and it spills out to the entranceway, and they are fighting there. The Usos stand tall after laying waste to the New Day here. Very powerful stuff, very impactful by the Usos. I think it's the first time we've ever seen that happen, where somebody actually interrupts, the New Day's entrance at that point before they even make their way to the ring. So very cool stuff, kind of interesting shakeup here. Main event time, the US Championship on the line in a triple threat as Kevin Owens defends against AJ Styles and the returning Chris Jericho. Great stuff here. This is my favorite match of both nights, far and away. I just love this match. My favorite spot was actually something really quick. It was just, Styles had Owens in the calf crusher, and Jericho does the lion salt onto both of them to break it up. That's a really cool way to break up a finisher if ever I've seen one. So many great near falls in this match where each guy was hitting like their big moves on each other, and there are all these kickouts. Like, pop-up power bomb, he hits it. Styles hits the springboard 450, and like all these kickouts. So many near falls and so many priceless reaction shots from Kevin Owens after the kickout. He's like, what? And so the match ends when Kevin hits Jericho with a frog splash, but then he's tossed out of the ring by Styles, and Styles pins Jericho to win the championship. He's the new US Championship. The America, America song is dead again. We had it and we lost it. So in a big, shocking move, Styles becomes the champion once again to end the show. Really surprising stuff to end a really exciting main event. I thought this was great. My one gripe about this match was, are we getting into kind of a situation from like what we saw last year with the women's title between Sasha and Charlotte, where like there's hot potatoing the belt back and forth? Because, think of what we have just in the last few weeks alone. You have AJ winning the belt at the house show, Madison Square Garden. Then Kevin wins it back on Sunday. Then on Tuesday, AJ wins it back. Kind of similar to what happened, around Payback when Jericho wins the belt from Kevin Owens. Then the next 2 nights, he loses it to Kevin Owens again. And it's got these really short bursts, these really short reigns, in the middle of this extended thing for Kevin Owens. It's really weird what they're doing here, and I hope it's not like a continuing trend with this. But I mean, if we get more matches like what we saw on Tuesday, I'm all for it, because I mean that was a great match. And so yeah, again, it's my one gripe, and I hope it doesn't turn into more of what we saw last year with the women's championship on Raw. But again, really no complaints about the match itself. Good to see Chris Jericho back. I hope he is around for a good period of time. I hope it's not just a one and done like Great Khali, I guess. But I'm glad to see Chris Jericho back, and I think he really performed well considering he hasn't done any wrestling since May. Time now for me to decide which show won for the week, Raw or Smackdown. You know, watching these shows on Hulu, especially Raw and especially with ad-free Hulu, which I subscribe to, makes watching this stuff a breeze. I could watch 90-minute Raws all day. You know I missed a lot of Raw this week. I know there was a match between the Revival and Anderson and Gallows in which I think the Good Brothers are kind of turning face, and then you've got, you know, Emma and Nia Jax. I don't know what Emma did to piss people off to get squashed, literally squashed so badly here in WWE. You know, so I know I missed a lot, so I'm not going to allow what I watched here affect the point totals overall, but I will determine a winner. I think SmackDown won for the week, but you know, like I said, the points are the same. It's kind of like when a heel champion loses by disqualification. They get to keep their championship. Raw still has the streak, even though SmackDown won this week on Who Wore It Better. I think both shows had really strong opening segments. I liked, with SmackDown in particular, I liked, you know, Shinsuke and Corbin. Again, huge improvement from what we saw at Battleground, in my opinion. Cena's promo, the whole Cena-Jinder segment was pretty, it was, you know, short and to the point and very strong. Cena didn't keep going, America fuck yeah, so that's, you know, just the fact that it was a more subdued, but still kind of like humorous but serious promo by Cena, if that makes any sense. That was a strong segment for me. And again, the main event, the US Championship match, was amazing. It was my favorite match of both shows. The one con I have with SmackDown this week is just like, are we getting to that Charlotte-Sasha territory with like hot potato in the US title? You know, what do you guys think about the title situation? I want to hear your thoughts in the comments section. For Raw, again, I love the opening segment there with, you know, Strowman, Roman, and Joe. Say that 5 times fast. And the fact that Angle announced a fatal 4-way for the championship at SummerSlam. Sasha and Bayley was a really strong match. And the main event, Ambrose and Rollins taking on the Miz Taraj, was a pretty solid match. Again, I hope Bo is okay. But the things I didn't like about Raw was just, you know, again, Enzo getting killed again. What's the point? What's left for him to do on Raw? And Jason Jordan, again, I'm going to give him 1 week to turn things around and go back to what he was like cutting promos with American Alpha, because the whole golly shucks aw gee thing he was doing this week on Raw did not do well for me at all. That's what I have to say about Raw and SmackDown this week. Let me know what you thought about the shows in the comment section below, and don't forget to vote which show you thought was better in the gimmick in the upper right hand corner of your screen. Who Wore It Better will go back to its regular Wednesday time starting next week. Be sure to thumbs up this video if you like it, subscribe to Wrestling with Regret, buy the t-shirts at ProWrestlingTees.com, and check out Patreon.com/WrestlingWithRegret for exclusive perks and some bonus content. I'm Brian Zane, and I'll see you next time.